You have quite a few people here today, everyone. You have Amy Lansky, author of Impossible Cure. Now, Amy, we did our giveaway of Impossible Cure last week, and the 1,000 copies went within 8 hours. So lots of people were very excited. And then, to be honest, lots of people were like, oh no, I was quick and I was not quick enough. So people will be starting to read those now. Now, you would know that your book is largely, the first one at a lot of colleges that they ask people to read. It was the first book I was given at my college when I was studying 10 years ago. But tell us about yourself. Tell us about your journey. Where's it taken you?
Okay, well, who where, how should is there a way to see myself and the people
Can you
on?
see, can you
Maybe
see
I'll
yourself?
paint
You
you.
you'll only be able to see the five of us and the other 133. If you have it on the meeting setting where you can see everyone, it's like,
Yeah.
whoa. So you'll only be able to see the five of us. If you can you see us currently?
Okay. No, I see it now. Okay. I see all of you. So,
Okay.
well, what a voyage. And I talk a lot about that voyage in my third book, which we're going to talk about too. So, you know, really, I've talked to Steve about this a lot, my husband. What we experienced with the healing of my son Max, who, by the way, is now 34, um, uh, set us on a trajectory that ultimately landed us where we live now in South Carolina. Um, that we so because really at the time when all this happened, as I describe in Impossible Cure, we were just nerds in Silicon Valley doing research. And that was our life. This was sort of the beginning of the rise of Silicon Valley, the 80s, the 90s. Um, and it was an amazing time. But our experience with what happened to Max threw us, threw me, and but also Steve and the rest of my family out of that box because it was so miraculous. It was so, even though I was always a spiritual person, it it completely changed our view of reality. So and then after my book came out and its success, and people, I was an unknown in homeopathy, but really God guided me to write that book. And so I had the confidence. At the time, there was no such thing as print on demand. So 5,000 copies landed on our doorstep and they sold within a year. And then we ordered another 5,000 physical copies and they sold. And then ultimately it went on print on demand, thank God, because I was tired of shipping boxes. But but that led me into the health freedom movement, really, because then we tried to, at the time, and the health freedom movement in the United States now is more focused on the patient's health freedom, but now it is. But then it was about the freedom of practitioners to practice, because in every state, and you had to go state by state, you could be accused of practicing medicine without a license. So then I got involved in passing this law, which we successfully did at the time, to legalize unlicensed alternative forms of medicine under certain restrictions in California. And I testified in Sacramento, which is the capital of California. And then I became a board member of the National Center for Homeopathy. And and then ultimately, I got involved or interested in more spiritual things and trying to really understand what's going on with homeopathy at a more uh, even at a physics kind of level. And I wrote this book, Active Consciousness, which came out now. Oh my
Let me
God, like
just see.
14 years ago.
There we go, guys. So it's that one in the
It's
middle
the
there,
brown
that book.
one, yes. And it discusses various phenomena, over the years. It's like Steve and I just somehow have met people through synchronistic happenings of people who are researchers in psychic phenomena, scientific researchers. Steve even did the implementation on the computer of experiments for them through just a weird set of circumstances. Um, I met Rupert Sheldrake. I met all of these people over the years, and that book discusses my view of uh, things like synchronicity and and how homeopathy works, which I view as working through synchronicity. Um, as
We
a
talk
higher
about this a lot with our students, and it's a part, I'm not sure whether all homeopaths completely grasps the depths of what we actually recreate in people's life, right? But we were talking about, you give a well-indicated remedy, and then they find out in the job that they've been tolerating for 20 years that they do not enjoy at all. And then they say, I just got the call. I've been made redundant. I'm not, and this aspect of influencing the vibration of a human being and what that does for their external experience of the world in relationships with other people, with jobs, with everything. And have you found, is that what you mean, Amy, when you're talking about how homeopathy actually is with that consciousness as well and the synchronicities that come up?
Right. I was invited to um, give a lecture to the Quintessence Forum earlier this year, and it was focused really on what I talk about in active consciousness, how homeopathy works from that point of view. Because, and I also discuss it in chapter, uh, what chapter is it? I think 6 of Impossible Cure. Various theories about water structure, um, but I tend to believe, unlike some people who really wanted to talk about nanoparticles, that it is really operating on on our etheric body, that this etheric body is a real thing, an energy body. It's the vital force. That's and I'm in my third book, I call it the etheric body, but it's what Hahnemann called the vital force. And that this and that there's and this etheric body is the substrate between our physical body and these even higher energy bodies, which is why homeopathy can also heal our emotions, our spirit, our thoughts. It penetrates all the levels. It's a very deep form of medicine. Uh, and so, and the way that all these kind of phenomena work is through synchronicity. So let me explain what synchronicity is again, because Jung came up with the term, which is that things with a similar vibration tend to co-occur in time and space. Right? So this is, he would say the reason why a person's watch stops at the moment of their death is because it's an occurrence with similar meaning. Or the story from how he discovered synchronicity, this patient was recounting a dream about this golden scarab, which described the meaning of the dream, and then the beetle appeared in the room in waking life. So synchronicity, it's about similar vibrations. And what does that sound like? The law of similars, right? So what you're doing is you find the remedy that creates the similar vibration of the person, and you find out what it does through provings, right? So the goal of the homeopath is to find all the symptoms which indicate the vibration on this etheric level, I believe, of the person, and then you find the remedy that matches that vibration. You bring the two together, and then this is the miraculous part. Somehow that heals the person. And then the question is, why does this synchronistic meeting of the person and the remedy create healing? And there's various, I talk about this in Impossible Cure, how that might happen, which is that some theories are that it replaces the vibration, or it informs the vibration of the person to get out of this kind of state of stuckness and shift it. Um, so uh, so anyway, Do you want me to continue with the story of my life, how this trajectory occurred?
Absolutely. Yeah, go.
So, because of impossible cure, people started writing to me, not just a lot of parents of autistic kids, obviously, but I got these letters from some guy in prison, believe it or not, who was accused of killing his infant son. And at first I ignored these letters, but then I opened them, and he was trying to find out if he believed, and actually there were a lot of doctors supporting him, is that his son actually died from a vaccine injury. And so he knew we were computer people. At the time, the vaccine injury data for the United States was not available to any normal human. It was just a bunch of files at the CDC. And he thought, can you figure out if my son got a bad lot of a vaccine? So I was telling Steve about this, and he just downloaded the data. It's free to the public, and over a weekend, and he determined, yes, this guy's kid did get a bad lot, a hot lot, they call it, that caused a lot of injuries. And then he put it online, and it became the first web-based access to the vaccine injury data in the United States for the public. This was like over 20 years ago. And so that obviously propelled us into, surprisingly to us, the other health freedom movement. And that exploded during COVID, right? So his website hits went from 50,000 a day to 500,000 a day once the COVID vaccines came out. And because we were aware of the injuries from the COVID vaccine, we wouldn't get it. And so, and in the Bay Area, which was the first place to shut down in the United States, and the most, except for maybe New York City, the most strict about it, we felt we had to leave.
Mm.
So it was very difficult because I'd lived there for 45 years, in our house for almost 40 years. And we were in our late 60s. I'm turning 70 this week. And
Wow.
it set us, none of this would have happened if my son hadn't gotten sick, right? None of it would have happened. And so we just got in our car and drove the United States for a year to decide where to move. And we landed in South Carolina, where we live now. So, and so, I had written Living in Synchrony, my third book, which I hope many of you will check out. Most of it before COVID. And I'll talk a little bit about it, but that experience clarified why I wrote it and what its purpose was for me, which was that I believe that people are going to need to be able to cure themselves in the future. They can't, that the time of relying on allopathic medicine is becoming more difficult. It has its place, obviously. And so over the years, I've learned a lot more types of therapies beyond homeopathy, although homeopathy is still our number one thing we do. And so what this book is, I view it as a guidebook to understanding who we are as human beings, from our physical and through all our energy bodies, and then to understand where all these different therapies fit. Like, what do they address within this whole structure of who we are, right? So we know as homeopaths that many physical ailments are triggered by, let's say, an emotional event, and it's very important in finding the right remedy, right? But sometimes even the right remedy doesn't address it because this emotional problem is still there. It doesn't, let's say it doesn't cure it. And so then you might need to use a therapy that addresses this emotional body, which is the astral body in my lexicon in this book. So, so as far as I know, this is the first book that organizes, like I would say, a good 100 types of different therapies according to the structure of the complete human being. And I spend the most time talking about homeopathy, obviously, because that's the one I know about.
What are some of your other favorite modalities? What ranks the highest with you?
Besides homeopathy.
Mm.
Um, well, I'll just say I'll say from the physical level, my favorite is perhaps posture therapies, how we move our body and their posture, which really affects the physical body. And also I like osteopathy and sometimes chiropractic too, but I'm not a user of herbalism, which I consider more of a physical body therapy. That I've never really gotten into because I actually think it interferes with homeopathy sometimes. Uh, and then on the etheric level, homeopathy. On the astral level, which is our mental, our no, I'm sorry, our emotional and psychic part of us, um, I talk a lot in the book about how I really liked the Sedona method, but I also talk about which is a way of releasing certain emotional patterns. But I've gotten into something called core transformation, which is also very powerful. I hardly talk about it in the book but I'm reading the core transformation book now, which is really accessing, really getting to the root of what this part of us really wants and fulfilling it. In a way, it's like taking the remedy. Um,
Mm.
yeah. And what else would I say in the astral astral therapy? I talk a lot about, and I learned about this before I even knew what homeopathy was, the work of John Sarno, who was actually confirmed allopath, but he believed that most ailments, even up to cancer, are rooted in emotional tension that causes constriction in your muscles, even very subtle, and then that causes loss of blood flow, and that causes a host of all problems, especially musculoskeletal pain, but um, lots of other things too. So now whenever I get a headache, I go, what's bothering me?
Mm.
Figure it out, release, you know. So, and then on the mental level, I do this thing called um, logosynthesis, which is a word-based therapy where you say these words and to release things. And then at the causal level, it's about manifestation and stuff like that. Which is really the focus of my second book. Um, yeah. So right now, I would say for me, my first go-to is the emotional therapies, and then I go to homeopathy. So I do those together. So
Love it.
I
What
tend
do
to
you
be,
think?
I'm sorry,
What
I
do
tend to be pretty psychosomatic. So I often somaticize my emotions. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. What do you feel it would mean for the world if they actually understood, say, well, one, impossible cure, the nature of homeopathy, if the whole world knew it, right? And the
I
government let
wish.
everyone know what would that mean? And then also with your later work, how do you think we can use this to sort of transform the world that we're in right now? Because obviously we sort of look around, it's interesting times. What do you feel about the trajectory we're on?
I mean, I must confess, I get kind of depressed about the trajectory we're on. You know, I think, okay, I'm going to say something positive is I think COVID woke up a lot of us up. And I think, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Matthias Desmet called The Psychology of Totalitarianism. That was very eye-opening for me. And I think a danger we're in. He talks about these mass formations, sort of groupthink, which have gone on in humanity for a long time and the energy is contagious. these psychological formations are contagious. And so, COVID itself, the fear was a mass formation, but like now we're like caught in a whole bunch of mass formations. And it is really important to see it. So, for example, in the United States, it's really intense, the left versus the right. And and we went from basically the left to the right because of what happened to us. I was always like, I would say super left wing, Californian, a Northeasterner, moved to California. I never would have thought I'd live in the American South. There's such prejudice against the South in the United States. It's unbelievable, and it's all bullshit, really. Now I know. I've been living here for 3 years. And I'd say that South Carolina is less racist than California, personally. Anyway, I think that we have to guard ourselves from these formations, really show discernment, not listen to everything you're hearing on the media or even from these, this anger and all this stuff. And the only way to do it is go within and maybe understand who you are and that these things are happening to you. So, like by using all these tools, I talk about not just homeopathy, but many in living in synchrony, that because once if we're so trapped, then it becomes impossible to show that discernment. My husband always says when he hears stuff, well, maybe that's his response when people say stuff. They go, well, maybe that's true, because it's hard to know it's true anymore. And the other thing that both of us are doing, because we're both PhDs in computer science, is alerting people to the danger of AI. I've been writing a lot about it lately. I just wrote an article for my friend Richard Pitt for this journal he edits called Six Ways AI Could Destroy Homeopathy.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
it's going to come out like early next year. uh,
Awesome.
and I can talk about that too. It's very
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
do you want to give us like a bit of an
Yeah.
insight? Because it's
Because,
definitely something people worry about.
because by the way, Steve and I both did our PhDs and did a lot of research in AI, but not what people think of as AI now. It was an older form of AI that was basically a failure. And Steve really believes that what we're currently experiencing with this explosion of AI will also ultimately lead to what computer scientists call an AI winter, where it's people reject it, or it just causes more problem than it's worth.
Mm,
But it's more dangerous than ever. We're very hyper aware of privacy issues, which is very hard to solve now, but also how truth is manipulated. And that I wrote an article. Which one? I've been writing a lot of articles. I think people should go to my website, which is amylansky.com, to my blog, and read my more recent, more philosophical, society-based articles about what's going on. Um, but, oh, Jean, you have a question?
Yes, it was just in terms when you were talking, I was thinking, well, we need some new philosophical thinking. Many of the old philosophers are no longer serving as well. And I was thinking, in the post-COVID world, how we are managing these intersections between AI, the person, the state, and this idea of authenticity you know, and how we are going to move to we've moved to an individual world, but we also need to move back to a societal world where there's connection and communication. And I was wondering if you've been doing any work along those lines.
Your question reminded me of one more thing about that I wanted to say
Okay.
about AI and my third book. which is, and it's a thread throughout the book, so how could I have forgotten to mention it? But it kind of answers your question too, which is I believe, okay, coupled with AI is enough of a problem, but to me, even more dangerous is transhumanism, which is the merger of humans with machines. And this has been happening. I mean, this kind of stuff has been going on 20 years ago. Steve and I went to this party. I was probably 20 years ago. We were the oldest people there then, of all these entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. And these young people were saying to us, we're going to live to be 1,000, and we're going to do this, and we're freezing our sperm and eggs, and we're going to merge with machines. And we walked out of there and went, what the hell? Who are these people? Anyway, I believe now, and it's happening. Stanford is like the epicenter of it, and that's my alma mater, and we live 10 minutes from Stanford. So not only merging with machines, but also gene editing our very being as human beings. And I believe that if we do this, and a lot of people want to do it, especially in Silicon Valley, we will damage our innate healing power as energy beings.
So
that
what do you think?
critical.
Yeah.
What if we can't heal with homeopathy anymore? Because we aren't even human beings anymore. We've lost our energy beings, our energy body.
And do you find it also extends to even the creative potential of human beings in terms of how we're actually designed to imagine something, you know, and really feel it into creation? Like, this is all an energetic thing. If we can't feel it with our hearts, how do we bring projects to fruition? You know, that's really when the transhuman thing comes in. That's what I worry about. If you start to take over our natural abilities, well, of course, like all other things, we'll just stop making it. They'll just think it's redundant in a human being now. And because a lot of people don't realize the actual potential within us as creator beings, that's why they hand it over to transhumanism. They actually think it is superior. Well, it's smarter. It's, you know, going to last longer in this body, but we've really shortchanged ourselves in not understanding.
That's the actual, goal of my book. It's what I realized why I had to write this book is that we should realize that all these energy bodies and all these therapies that address them are way more powerful than allopathic medicine, fundamentally. We know that as homeopaths. And what if we lose our ability to heal at those levels? That is so scary to me. And we just become basically biological robots. And you want to know something? You know why this appeals to Silicon Valley? Because they already believe we're biological robots. They truly believe that, okay? They don't believe in any of these things, which they think are insane, So if you think you are just a biological robot and have no spirit, have no soul, have no energy, but you, of course, want to do this and just live forever as a biological robot. It is so scary. People, do not stick these things into your body, Don't change your genome, for God's sake. So this is another way I said AI could start homeopathy. Because what if the repertory in materia medica is irrelevant now? We won't even be human beings. Our patients won't be able to even tell us their symptoms because they won't know what it is because they're so used to this already happens in the clinic. A patient comes in, they don't even know how to tell you how they feel. They just tell you some numbers from a test, right? They've lost touch with how they even feel. It's so important. Maybe homeopathy, I feel like we're just going along two different trajectories as humanity. Yeah. So, Jean, I feel like I didn't totally answer your question. Maybe proud me again.
Fine. I mean, I'm pleased to see that you're doing the philosophical work as well around it all.
Yeah, I've been more drawn to that lately because of what happened to us.
And I think physics moved away from the philosophy at one time, and now I think there's some eminent thinkers that are moving back to integrate, the philosophy with the physics. And I don't think physics can really exist without it.
Yeah. But if only people believed what physicists, even just physicists, are telling them about things like entanglement and all this stuff. I mean, homeopathy is the medicine of all that in many ways, right? Um, and
So
sadly, allopathy's gotten more and more scary. We have two doctors living across the street, just retired, and they said to us, they know what we're about. Don't go, they said to us, don't go to the hospital. They'll kill you. So, like, what do we do? I feel like I have no choice but to use these other therapies because I'm afraid of going, you know, anyway. So, um, I don't know. What else can I say?
what do you think then? What do you think the potential of homeopathy is then? Because I don't think we've used it to its full potential up to now. So, in the work that you've been doing, I wonder where you see it going within this new world.
Um, I was actually fantasizing. What if I was given a chance to give a talk about the future of homeopathy? Because I worry about, just even on a mundane level, is that there's not enough homeopaths. You're trying to address that, right, Melissa, by having your school. Um,
Yes. I
um,
feel that the explosion of interest at the moment, as you said, it's a right place, right time. It's the obvious choice for medicine in the future. I have no doubt that we'll eventually get there, but I just wonder the journey in between. Do we have lower to go before we really all start to get on the same page? But there's three things that we put down that we just think are so critical for the future of humanity. And that would be good regenerative farming so that we're actually able to feed our bodies, but really focus on that. Alternative education, not like mainstream schools. It's just too much indoctrination now. It's a bit of a risk. And then homeopathy. And at least if we had those three things going really strong, I think we might be all right. But yeah, not enough homeopaths and not enough families out there who know about it. Like people are desperate, people who, whether it's complex children, hormonal issues, like we've just got so much going on that it seems unfair that there are people out there who still don't know what homeopathy is.
I think that that's that this battle has been going on since Hahnemann, and that the power of the big pharma is so, they are scared of us, I think, which is why, like in the US, they're trying to change the FDA regulations so that we can't even access the remedies. Uh, and all this effort to destroy the careers of anybody like Luc Montaigne and stuff who find out that you can potentize even an allopathic drug and it'll still work. Um, so that's that is so big because they control the mainstream media. So, but people are waking up. More and more people are waking up. So that's what we have to penetrate. I mean, it's my ardent hope that like RFK talks about homeopathy. That would really, not that people here, half the country is not even listening to him and thinks he's insane, but he's doing unbelievable work here. Things that I never thought would happen in my lifetime. So I pray every day God protects RFK. But is there any influence of what he's doing in Australia, in Europe, in England? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a huge lot going on in the UK, Amy, and this speaks to the synchronicity that you talk about actually in your book, right? Because the more ripples we send out as individuals, I think the more we'll get back. And there's a whole movement that RFK has started that we're seeing in the UK, and there's lots of questioning that's going on. And naively, I thought that the recent banning in Australia of teens using social media was a good thing, right? but quite a few people told me that it was, not the thing that was intended at all, and that actually it wasn't what was going to happen. So we have to be careful, don't we? Because the small ripples that we send out, actually, sometimes it can turn into something else. But RFK has started a huge movement, and we have to build on that, I think, as individuals and collectively with our patient lists and all the people that we know. We've just got to keep building on it. And that was one of my questions to you, how can we collectively change things? How can we start this movement? Melissa's done a huge thing with education. How can we all create this movement to enable homeopathy to become again the medicine of the people?
Can I add something to that? And how do
Yeah,
we
yeah.
make sure that what happened in the early 2000s, when homeopathy, the 1990s and the 2000s, when homeopathy education, when I became a homeopath in the early 90s, there was this huge burgeoning of hope. And I think, Jan, when you started, you were looking to go into a world where it was popular, where you felt real possibility. And then we were shut down by the establishment. I used to run a university course in homeopathy, and we were completely vilified by the medical establishment and the scientists who came after us. And I'm just wondering, how do we make it so that that doesn't happen again?
I'm going to go against the grain because a lot of people think that we can prove to the allopaths that we have to prove ourselves with studies and mechanism and do all that. And I think that I just think maybe that can come in the future, but that is a hopeless case. I mean, I think that, how Kim Elia has this wants to create now a series about that follow on from his movie, but he wants to debate the skeptics. No, that is going to be a disaster. It always is a disaster. That's happened to everybody because it's going to be manipulated by. I mean, now Big Pharma has more money than the military establishment, I just read recently. So no, I think the way is through the people. It's the only way is through the people, through healing. And this is why my book has been successful, because of all the stories of healing, not just autism, but all this other stuff. And so I think it's just so hard. It's been hard since Hahnemann, hasn't it? It's maybe we thought that like successes with COVID would do it, right? But no, they were even like pushing down ivermectin, or vitamin D, for God's sake. So I think it's got to be somehow appealing to the people who are waking up, because I'm convinced that the people who are asleep are still asleep. All my old friends in California, they will never wake up, never. They're still I don't know how they've probably been vaccinated 7 or 8 times already. I don't know how they're still alive. So I think, so how do you do it? I'll tell you who really likes homeopathy is, because I live in the South now, is religious people. The Orthodox Jews, the fundamentalist Christians, they believe in spirit.
They definitely had a much easier time in the last couple of years because they honor the way that God designed our bodies. And so homeopathy comes in alongside that, which is funny, isn't it? Because a lot of the criticism I've ever had to defend homeopathy for is it's demonic. But for the ones who understand it, they really understand this is really probably the medicine God intended for us to use for the human body, human spirit.
So here in South Carolina, there's a lot of homeschoolers. So, and mostly Christian homeschoolers. And one of the things my husband's doing is, I mean, we're Jewish, but he teaches a lot of these homeschoolers computer stuff at our house, actually. And a lot of them, not only are they not taking the vaccines, but their families use homeopathy, some of them. It kind of comes out, while it's somehow, and I think there's a resurgence of attraction to religion in response to COVID, don't you think? Spirituality. And maybe that's how we get there. Hey, does Russell Brand use homeopathy? He's like really preaching out there. Maybe we need like a super famous person who's not afraid to get out there and say it, because most people like RFK, he can't really, at this point, he's barely holding on to any kind of credibility. So it would take a lot for him to go way out on the limb and talk about homeopathy. But
he has before, but it was written in a comment, in a typed comment from him about the war on homeopathy. And I was speaking to a friend of his a couple of, well, it's probably months ago now. And he was working on protective legislation, even in the US, and pushing things through. So he's definitely aware. But there's probably a lot more that goes on to, what he's allowed to publicly say. It's probably not just a matter of what he wants, right? But we'll see definitely when I think you're right that it'll be this slow trickle, and definitely it's people telling people. And with these homeschooling groups, oh my gosh, I saw the funniest video the other day, and this woman, she's a homeschooling mum, and she's at the zoo, and there's like, because off-peak times, homeschool kids, like whenever I go anywhere, you know who the homeschool kids are, because we're all obviously at the zoo on like a Monday in the middle of the day. But she's doing the video, and the zookeeper guy's doing this presentation for the kids, and they're like, look out now, see the animal, look, he's getting his shots, hands up here, who's had their shots? And like no one, like out of these like 20 kids standing there, they all like look around, and then all the mums look at each other and start laughing, because they didn't actually know each other. They just happened all to be homeschooling families, but they do tend to go against the grain and be a bit more rebellious. And so I think there's a lot of hope with the rise in homeschoolers, that a lot of knowledge is about to, come back up again.
Yeah. I have no idea how to save homeopathy, except I feel like, like you say, maybe its time is coming, because I just think it's inevitable that allopathy is going to collapse.
They're getting too reckless now with Ozempic and all of the other things. The trust is like paper thin, and it's just, eroding. We do have a few questions. Oh, Jean, you go, and then I'll
I'm just thinking. So, I do think we are perhaps on the paradigm shift then. We are moving from, this allopathic mindset into, as you say, a more spiritual, a more natural mindset. So I think that is probably, for me, I've been thinking that for a few years, that said there's this real paradigm shift going on. And I think before, when that's happened, we've been on the brink of it, but we've never got over it. It's always been, the response has always been quite strong towards it. But I do wonder now if we can just get over the hump of that paradigm shift.
Well, the astrology says that the next couple of years will start getting better. Maybe we just have to be a little more patient. I don't know. I think the fact that I mean, who would have thought RFK would be in this position 2 years ago? Nobody. So something is shifting. Something amazing is shifting. And I think that, this is why we had to leave Silicon Valley, because I felt it was the epicenter of the opposite mindset. And we just couldn't, the energy was so horrible. We couldn't be there anymore, except California is still a beautiful state. but it's been taken over by,
The hive mind.
yeah, it's interesting. Like my son Max, who's not really a special spiritual person, the one, the impossible cure boy. He went up to the Bay Area to San Francisco for something. He lives in LA, and he had to get his global entry something anyway. And he said, Ma, when I was driving into the Bay Area, I felt there was something demonic going on. It's like, all these animated billboards are just talking about AI, and it's really dystopian. It's become very dystopian. And even he and other people can feel it. When we decided to leave, we actually went to my husband's dermatologist. We were in the room and she said, "I'll see you next year." And we said, "No, we're leaving." And she said, "That's a good idea." And I said, "Did the doctor say that?" Yeah, people can feel it. It's really not a good place. So, but those people, it will never change. So this is why I say, don't try to prove scientifically, because these people's mind will never be changed. Never. I wish it would. I wish our old friends would apologize to us for what they did to us. But my husband keeps saying, don't even think about that. That's not going to happen. And so, yeah. Okay, questions. Am I making any sense here? I don't want to depress everybody, but I think there is hope. We need more homeopaths who know what they're doing. I'm so worried because homeopathy is so powerful that it can be scary, and these people who don't know what they're doing can do a lot of harm too.
I don't know. Yeah, okay, there we go. I think my sound's working. So a question, Amy. Where does one search for lot numbers for vaccine injury batches?
Okay, so I believe that it's in the VAERS data. I don't know about the European, but like the vaccine adverse event reaction system. This is the CDC's VAERS data, which you can access actually through their website now. But although even the researchers use Steve's website, which is medalerts.org, medalerts.org, or if you go to the nvic.org, which is the National Vaccine Information Center, they point to MedAlerts. So, and Steve's now on their board too. But so I believe you'll get the lot numbers for the vaccines there. I'm not sure, but I mean, that's the data is indexed through lot numbers. So I can ask Steve if that's not true. It's not the easiest site to use, but it's easier to use than the government site, which is why even the researchers use his site.
Did the gentleman that, told you about his young son, I think it was, who died, did he ever get off?
He did get off, but it wasn't because of what we gave him. At the time, he was actually sentenced to life in prison in Florida at the time. And his wife was leading the effort to get him out. And a lot of like various alternative therapists were trying to help him. But I think what ultimately got him off is that he was like, a very poor guy. He had a public defender. It was a complete bad trial. Yeah, he spent 8 years in prison. And it's like the case, they even like said that this baby was black when he was white. It was a total sham trial. And I think ultimately, in addition to the fact that it was a hot lot, he got out. He got out. So
Okay, that's good. That's a win. We'll definitely take that. That
yeah.
exciting. Okay, another question. For what purpose would you potentize an allopathic medicine? Would that be good or bad for you? So just to give you an example there, Barbara, I saw recently an Indian homeopath, Corinne Daniels, and she was talking about using the potentized Ritalin in some cases. So there's just different instances where we can use a drug that's made into a homeopathic remedy. so that we don't have any of the toxic side effects, but we can still stimulate their field. If it resonates enough with their symptoms, it will have a healing response. Okay, Amy, you mentioned that homeopathy can interact with herbal medicine or stop the potential of homeopathy. Is that only if taken closely together or at all? How do you feel about herb supplements around homeopathy?
Well, I think like everything, it depends on the patient's susceptibility, right? So, for some, it may not interfere at all, and I think that the answer is to try it and then see what the effects are. But I think that there are certain things that are antidotal. So, for example, like a lot of people take tea tree oil all the time, and in my experience, it's completely antidotal. It has that really strong smell. So, sometimes I wonder if people, like, it's in shampoo and all this stuff, if they're antidoting the remedy with these things. So I am very prone to actually, but coffee doesn't antidote me, but like tea tree oil does. I think it depends on some person's susceptibility. And so you need to try it if you really want to do it. I'm very cautious about even adding vitamins in, and although I do take some vitamins. So yeah, you have to really, but I would say be aware that these things could interact.
Yep, absolutely. And I feel the same regarding supplements and herbs. And it's about, are we still approaching the body homeopathically or allopathically? Are we using sympathy or antipathy in what we're even trying to achieve with those herbs? Amy, your one piece of advice for parents who are desperately seeking healing for their complex child.
Besides homeopathy, the parents now, they struggle so much because the assaults on kids are so much worse than even when it was going on with my son. So many more vaccines. So the food supply, that much worse. Um, and so you might listen to, I have like 4 years of radio shows on the website that I recorded. But I think number one, besides homeopathy, is the diet. Look at the diet, and don't give up hope. Like your intention is really important. Now, it's a pattern among these families where either you just give up and won't try, and if you're here, you're not one of those, or to get invested in your child's state, to say, it's one thing to accept your child, it is, but it's another thing to really get into the diagnosis as an identity for you and the child, because you're just blocking that energy that they can get better. So I would just say, it really worries me now that autism is becoming normalized. And parents are unaware that this was not going on 50 years ago. It was just like unheard of how sick kids are now. So I know it's not PC, but it's not normal to be autistic, okay? Kids and they're not, it's not something you want your kid to be. Don't you want them to live a full life, So I know it's very not politically correct right now. So I thank God every day my kid is no longer autistic. But and he's happy too. So but I think you got to have this intention that you can get better. Maybe not complete recovery, but any little bit helps. And another thing is the whole family should be treated, because it's a family dynamic too. It's like a swirling family dynamic. So if you all start healing, it helps all of you. And find a good homeopath. Like if it's not working, change. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who aren't very good, or they just don't see your case. And try one thing at a time. There's a lot of desperation because parents are like throwing everything at it at once because they're so desperate. And it's better to start with one thing at a time. You can see what's happening, what's doing what, and watch and observe very closely what's helping. So
someone has asked, how common is it amongst modern homeopaths to start with Ton Jansen's protocols for detoxing due to previous allopathic meds? Would this be part of future homeopathic practice? So, Lolly, it really depends on the practitioner, how they approach things. Some people will open with detox protocols. They might start with steroids, which they actually, rank up higher often than vaccines down the bottom. So homeopaths all have their own very unique approaches. Some people, like in Max's case, it's really a totality prescription, really looking for the simillimum to suit him as a whole. So there are different ways to go about it. Amy, how do you feel about the different approaches of homeopaths? You've seen many varied.
Yes, I think that I do talk to a lot of homeopaths who treat autistic kids, and because I'm not a practitioner. I think that as the cases have become harder, more have needed to do detox and things like that. But I also have heard that Japan, I mean, there's like non-homeopathic detox things too, and they can antidote the treatment. They can be very harsh on the body. So if the parent is dead set on some form of detox, they should do that before they start doing classical homeopathy, because if you start one and then go to the other, it can totally derail the case. I've heard of cases like that. I personally believe it. You see, I don't know. I mean, things are so bad now that it's possible it's just more and more difficult to do. But I believe that even the constitutional can start detoxing the body,
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
I think that's what happened with Max over the years. One thing I don't talk about in the book, because this all happened later, is that over the years, those vaccines came out. Like when he was in 10th grade, he got mumps. I personally think he was an MMR injury, but maybe hepatitis B too. I didn't even know he had that vaccine at birth because I didn't find out until he was in college and they wanted him to take it. He hadn't had it, I thought, and they did a titer on him and he said, "Oh, you had the hepatitis B vaccine." Not that I knew. So, but anyway, but the MMR, after he had the mumps, he went from like a B student to an A student, super popular in high school. It changed him. So that made me wonder, maybe it wasn't the measles, maybe it was the mumps part of the MMR vaccine. It came out. It came out. As he was healing, he also got whooping cough at one point. And so it was like his body was getting rid of the vaccines by getting the disease naturally. It was very amazing. And since I'm 70 years old, I've had the mumps. I knew it was mumps when he had the mumps. Thank God I had those diseases.
Yeah, wow. That ties into another question we've got from Alyssa, and it says, your book was the first homeopathic book I read. It lit a fire in me as I felt like you were writing about my son. Carcinosin was our lifesaver as well, but I'm wondering, does Max ever need to go back on carcinosin as an adult?
He hasn't, I think he was on and off of it until maybe 6, 7 years old. And then he went into other remedies. So interestingly, he's been on the same remedy now for years. He's very lucky that this was his remedy. So like anytime he gets sick, it got him through COVID. It's like a great constitutional for him. But no, so we only did the LM dosing too in those first few years. Then he's just normal C potencies and stuff. So yeah,
And would
he's
he take his remedy daily, or it, like, because you're saying he's been on it for years, but he'll just use it when he's out of alignment,
yeah,
get
yeah,
a bit.
yeah. I would say he takes a dose of his current remedy just when he's like has an acute ailment, which is, maybe once a year, once or twice a year. That's it. And he always says, "What should I do, Ma?" I said, "Take your remedies." Like, uh, so he not only is he very healthy, he's like become like a bodybuilder. He's like so built, it's like shocking to me. So
Yeah,
this is a kid who was a total non-athlete. Now he's like Mr. Buff. So
I love it. I love it.
he's very
Uh,
handsome too. He's been in it, he's acted, he's been in commercials. So
Maybe he can go and become our big famous celebrity and then talk about homeopathy.
no, I doubt.
Amy, Amy, could I just ask, where do you see the miasms, now as in these times?
Wow. Yeah, I wonder if there'll be a COVID miasm, eh? Yeah. So I gotta say I'm not an expert in any of that. I think, Sankaran's work on like expanding the miasms is very interesting. I often refer to this chart I got at one of his seminars to see where, you know, where a remedy I'm taking is within his cosmology. Um, so sorry, I don't think I have anything to say except that I think that, yes, maybe there was going to be a miasm having to do with AI. Who
Mm.
knows? The machine miasm. It's very scary. But will any of this information be relevant if we're not even human beings anymore? Natural human beings. This is why I subtitled my third book the way I did, which is A Guide to Healing and Reclaiming our our powerful natural humanity, because we got to stay as much as we can natural human beings. Of course, see, there is a fine line. I'm wearing glasses. I'll probably need to get my cataracts done at some point. But there, when you are changing our actual, when it's inserted into our bodies so that we're not even using our minds anymore and that our genome is changing, what are we now? I'm not sure. So
Mm. No, definitely. And it'll be interesting to see, even if the lanthanides in homeopathy, a lot of our tech being made from lanthanides, and we have
right.
a presenter in one of our conferences next year all about the lanthanides, but the kids who are naturally drawn to and really good on the tech, but that this sort of energy can be used to heal them as well from some of their complex things physically, mentally and emotionally. Um, and I mean, it must be hard for you, Amy, because you're in a situation like you're in the thick of it. Like, all good for me in Australia, where I lived, we weren't too impacted, really by COVID. Our world wasn't turned upside down. I didn't have lifelong friends that I had to walk away from. So you're sitting in like a lot, and some of the highest echelons, understanding the Silicon Valley. So to some people, you speaking like this is probably like, oh my gosh, no, it's scary, but also we always trying to be honest with people. And yeah, we're trying to mobilize people for action. We're really trying to turn things around, make a real difference so that we have a bit of a softer landing when all of this does come to, sort of the surface. Let's get to a couple more questions. Vaccine shedding and the chemicals that are dropping from the sky. I feel like there's so many angles we are being exposed to. Amy probably just agrees and
I
agrees.
do, but I gotta say, remember, and I talk about this in my third book, there's always been assaults from the outside. There's always been pollution, all these things. And so if our vital force is strong, we can fight against it. right? So I try not to think about chemtrails, which I actually believe exist, because A, what can I do about it? And B, I feel like if I'm strong, if my vital force is strong, I can deal with it, you know? So, but the other one was shedding. It's real. I know if somebody was just recently vaccinated and hugged me, because then suddenly, and I'm 70, I get hot flashes for a couple days, you know? So, and I've heard many stories of such things. So, yeah, but like once again, if your body is strong, you can get back into balance, you know. So it's
We do it. We do our absolute best.
yeah, yeah.
A few people want to know, Amy, your thoughts on the MTHFR, gene mutations, and if you think this is also a contributing factor as to why so many children are being diagnosed with autism, not being able to effectively use their detox pathways. What do you think?
Well, you know, I never even had Max tested for these things. I mean, those things were unknown when he was going through this, which was over 30 years ago. I think it's important, A, not to get obsessed with the genetics. I mean, like all this stuff about, I mean, they tried to say autism was a genetic disease for so long, and maybe it is partially that, but we aren't victims of our genome. Okay, there's epigenetics, right? And so sometimes it's going to affect us, sometimes it's not. Um, I think that um, I often say to parents, don't get obsessed with the numbers of the tests. Just treat on the symptoms, right? So, but why do I think so many kids? I mean, I've written articles about that. I think that there's so many assaults now on kids. There's just a limit to how to children's susceptibility, right? I mean, there's just a limit to how much they can take. And so as the assaults increase, more and more kids are becoming autistic. So there's the vaccines, the food, the EMFs, that's a biggie. Uh, the chemicals on the food, there's glyphosate, there's um, fear and fear energies, family. It's just everywhere. The phones, everything. You know, it's really kind of magical. You know, the autistic parents, I'm sure, have heard, you know, this podcast, the
Telepathy tapes.
which I listen to. It's amazing. It makes you really think. But why do I think that's happening? According to my own view now about the energy bodies, is that these kids have left their physical bodies and are operating out of their higher bodies. So of course, if you're in your astral body, most of the time you're completely psychic. If you're in your mental body, which is you have access to unbelievable information. So if you're not grounded in your physical body, then these are the capabilities people would have when they're not grounded in their physical body. So it's really it's great that they have access to that, but I think it would be better for them if they learned how to ground into their physical body and heal at that level and live a full human life, because they obviously, I mean, maybe they incarnated to go through this and to give us information, but I don't know. It's hard to say, and um,
I heard Zach Bush. Do you know Zach Bush?
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, and he was doing a podcast episode once, and he was talking about the beauty and the bravery of the kids who ever, you know, perhaps volunteered to sort of live this life and this cycle and wake us up to the unnatural ways that we're living and really how much stress, and chemical bombardment that we brought into our lives. But, like the canaries in a coal mine, the kids are being affected. And if there's anything that adults and particularly parents are motivated by, it is protecting children and, protecting our own children, definitely. So I do think it is just a critical piece in the big turnaround. And with all the work that you've done, Amy, you would see, yes, all of the assaults, but you would also have seen so often the depths of healing and what is possible. And so we hold this absolute, intensity of the situation before us, and yet we know the vibrational nature of this universe really does mean that anything is possible, and that if enough of us collectively keep our minds where they ought to be and where we're headed, that we could pierce through and open things up for everybody. So it is certainly keep our energy and every single person who steps up beside us, really on track for what we want to create and not give way to
Yeah,
what
I'm a
anyone
strong
else.
believer in our thoughts creating our reality. So, and I'm guilty of all these things just like everybody else. But I have to remind myself I'm actually creating the audiobook now for my third book. Um and as I'm talking to the recording engineer, I'm going, wow, I should really be doing these things I'm talking about in this book because I'm just fallible like everybody. But it's yes, your intention and your hope helps create that reality. If we get into despair, that's going to create that reality, which is the danger of all this fear mongering of COVID. I mean, you know, it creates
Mm,
a horrific situation for humanity.
mhm. I love it. Let me just check any other questions. So Sharon was saying Veda Austin recently did an episode with Pam Gregory, an astrologer. She interviewed autistic children through an interpreter and was asking very pertinent questions about today's world. It was astounding. It is on Pam's YouTube. Oh, fantastic, Sharon. Thanks for sharing that.
I want to listen to it.
Mm.
What do they say? So, so
Yeah, I'm guessing. I mean, Sharon, feel free to give us the very quick brief on it if you can. Um, du- 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 du. And then there was a question here from Jess, and it was, as a mum of an autistic child, where do we start with homeopathy? And Jess, just to speak that answer out, the step is really finding the best fitting homeopath for your family. So that might take some time. As Amy said before, sometimes we do need to switch up who our homeopath is. I find it such a difficult, question to answer because obviously my inbox is full of people saying, look, I've been seeing a homeopath for a year, nothing's happening, should I change homeopaths, different approaches? And here's the reality, guys, is that sometimes it does just take time. And I do not recommend shopping, constantly, like every couple of months. You've got to give them a little bit of time. But at the same time, there are definitely different techniques and different homeopathic fits for individuals. And a lot of people, it might be with their second or their third homeopath where they find that one, that simillimum, and the world opens up and they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I found it. So not giving up, that's certainly something. And I can really, really stand on that and say, even with my own cases, a lot of the time, guys, you're going to get there. But really feel into it, feel into your connection with the homeopath. Are they listening to you? Do you feel that they're really understanding the totality of the whole case? Because, yeah, we see testimonies either way when people go and see another homeopath. So it's just something that you have to weigh up. But when you find a brilliant homeopath that your family really gels with, that is just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to have. So Sharon is saying that that interview, Pam's interview, the kids were saying that we must live above the noise. The lead up to the interview was Veda's choice to not use AI. And then she did the interview. The depth and intelligence of these autistic children are going to be coming to the forefront in the future, is what she's saying. Interesting.
well, they have access to information most of us are not aware of because we're like grounded in the physical, right? So I totally believe that they're providing us some information that we're not aware of. So
Yeah. And do you find, okay, Amy, we'll finish on this question. Do you think that when people are in alignment, they're homeopathically healed, they're vital, they're happy, they're thriving, that completely changes how they can create in their own life and manifest things, if you will?
definitely, definitely. I mean, because then if because your success in manifestation is affected by like your emotions and all these other factors. And if you're cleaning up who you are, then your ability to manifest will be better, because if you're, let's say, really don't want to, if a part of you doesn't want to manifest the thing you think you do, then that will block you. So, I mean, and that said, I have my issues too, right? So,
Mm.
it's hard. It's not I'm not magic, but I've learned a lot and I've had some successes. When we went out on the road, we were very conscious. Okay, we are going to pay attention to synchronicities, energies, what things happen to us. We used our heart, not our mind, in deciding where to end up moving. And all these things just kept happening to us that led us to where we ended up. And we ended up not only in the right city, but even on the right block, on the right street, in very strange ways. So I keep telling myself that when I have doubts, I just say, look, God really directed us here, so this is for a reason. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I love that. And I mean, if we speak it out there, so in our academy, the last intake, well, the current intake, we had 570 people sign up and they're studying homeopathy. And so us here who are with you, Amy, we are, their lecturers and their tutors. And so we're sitting in on their cases. And I mean, it's just phenomenal having these students come back with these results. And when we talk about what happens in a generation of people and families who bring themselves into alignment so that, yes, our creative potential and what we want to manifest, it could be because I'm a homeopath, but I really do actually believe it that homeopaths will be uniquely positioned to, I think, be these leaders, to have these hubs, to have these healing centers where actually true information is put out about health, about healing, about creation. And they bring all these people in their community under their wing and they set them right. Because when people have a right vibration, they don't do these negative things like, attract drama or gossip or all of these low vibrational sort of behaviors. People step up out of them and all of a sudden they desire what is good, what is peaceful, what is vital, and where everybody benefits. So, I honestly think that homeopathy in the transformation of the world as we go through, I think we have a critical, role to play, and we will really be a pillar of this new world. Peter, I see you've unmuted yourself. Did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say that people power is our potential. If we can make more difference for more people, there's more votes, there's more awareness. The political parties have never been our friends. We may have political influence as a consequence, but people power is the base. So if we're doing that with 570 students and our next intake and our next intake, and as that spreads and homeopathy flies yet again, as it has in the past, I think that is where our future lies. Rather than science, I think it's people power.
And
Agreed.
I love that. And it's just truth, right? They say truth, it can never be hidden. And that is what is on our side as homeopaths. We know that it's true. We know you can say, come and sit with me for a day in clinic. You watch these eczema cases clear up, you watch this asthma disappear. It's the truth, and you will all see it in time. Jan, were you going to say something there to finish off? Oh,
Gonna
Amy.
here.
I wanted to say, can I say one other thing? Which is that I wrote an article called Homeopath Heal Thyself. So all you homeopaths out there,
Yes.
go to a homeopath. Don't treat yourself. That's important.
Amen.
So you can be a good homeopath. Okay, Jeanette.
I was just going to say, Peter said it far eloquently than I was trying to say it earlier. For me, it's like about the ripples and conversations like this, you know, to get the story out there, to get the narrative, the truth, you know, because what I'm frightened of is AI taking over this complete narrative that just isn't true. And we have to keep the truth. We have to keep speaking the truth and spreading the truth. And conversations like this are vital. So,
And that's why we love your book, Amy, because it leads the way. I don't know if you're going to do a second edition, but it's fabulous. And as you've seen, Melissa is very generous, giving 1,000 copies away for free.
Amazing.
She uses that in her induction of when she meets new folks, she gives them a take-home first aid kit in a beautiful box and your book, and says, "There you go, have a try, have a read." And she converts all these people. She's converted these 570 students to come on board, and we keep on going, you know, for the next 20 years while Pluto's in Aquarius, we're going to make a big impact.
Yeah.
All systems go.
And check out my other books too.
Well, now we will.
Yeah, and if you do, please write a review on, especially the third book, because it's been slow going, and I'm trying to get the word out. So
I think a lot of people will love that. And Amy, can I just double check? The best place for them to buy it, is it through your website or through Amazon? Does it make a difference for
Amazon.
you?
Yeah, through Amazon. I mean, if they go to my website, I'll just point to Amazon. So
Gotcha.
but now it's also on Lightning Source, which is like another printer that will sell to retailers. It's also like when I sent you the 1,000 copies, Lightning Source prints in Australia, so it doesn't have to be shipped, you know, from the United States. So yeah. But yes, Amazon is the best. And when my audiobook comes out, it'll also be through Audible. So
I love it. Thank you so much, Amy, for taking the time to catch up with us. I can't believe I'm the same age as Max. I felt like so old reading that book, you know, in my early 20s. And by the time I was reading it, obviously we were already the same age. Thank you so much for joining us, Jen, Jean, Peter as well. And thank you, everybody in the audience, for joining, everyone who's watching the recording later. This is an exciting time to be alive, guys, and you know we've got a lot to do, and we'll keep getting it done. We'll pass it on to our kids when the time comes. But just beautiful, Amy, your books. Everyone enjoy Amy's new books. But thank you so much, Amy.
thank you. I mean, you are a warrior, Melissa. So keep at it. I'm amazed by you. So
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we appreciate all of you guys. Have a great day, great evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye,
okay.
guys.
Bye. I guess I'll stop the recording now. Or I don't know how to do it. Or maybe I'll just leave. Okay. Nice meeting you all.
Bye, Amy.
Okay.
Hi, Amy. Lovely meeting you.
Yes, lovely meeting you guys too. Keep
lovely.
up the good fight. We can do
Yeah.
it.
Bye.